Yo, what is up, everybody? John from Tau Tactics here, bringing you another video. Today we have a very special one. It is Balanced Data Slate Day. So we have Jay here from Pantheon Studios. Welcome back,
Hello,
Jay.
everybody.
Thanks for coming on. Want to give a plug to Jay's Discord community if you haven't checked it out. Super awesome seeing it pop off this morning with tons of great ideas and ideas flowing. So if you want to support Jay, go on over to the link in the description below. Check out his Discord community. And today's video, we're going to be walking through the balanced data slate very quickly together and just kind of free flowing ideas. What things we're most excited about. On my end, I was a little bit disappointed when I woke up this morning, but started to come around, started to have the juices flowing a little bit. I know Jay has a more positive spin on things, so we'll kind of
I
compare.
had the opposite reaction. When I was on stream, I actually had to, I read the line and then I walked away from my camera. And my chat was like, oh my God, what's going on? What's going on? What's going on? Oh no. And it was to go and tell Chelsea, hey, I'm about to make a lot of noise. Is Malleus asleep? I'm going to close the door. And then I walked back in and lost my shit because and nobody can change my opinion of this. We won the data slate.
Yeah.
We won the data slate. And like, somebody can make a claim of copium, but I genuinely don't think it is. I think that we just got a fundamental rules shake-up that other armies would kill for.
Yeah, it is. The more I think about it, the more significant I realize how it is. So, just for a frame of reference for everyone, I'm going to pull it up so you guys can see. We'll walk it through it pretty quickly together here, so we have an idea of kind of where this discussion is rooted. Before we hop into today's discussion, I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Secondhand Geek. Secondhand Geek is doing something pretty awesome. They are actually giving me a Tau Combat Patrol to give to you guys for free. All you got to do to get entered into the giveaway, which is going to go off this weekend, we'll pick a winner this upcoming weekend, is sign up using my referral link down in the description below to get automatically entered for this completely free giveaway. When you do sign up, I highly recommend checking out the website. It is, in my opinion, the best place for wargamers like me and you to go to buy and sell your minis. I think Secondhand Geek does a really good job because they do a couple really awesome things. They charge less from a seller's perspective, from a fee perspective, than other marketplaces. So that means that as a seller, you get to keep more of what you sell, and then you'll see that from a buyer's perspective reflect in that price. I'm sure you've had the experience like me where you go on Facebook Marketplace, you go to buy something, and turns out it's a scam, or you get it and it's a bunch of broken models. Secondhand Geek does this awesome thing where they wait until the buyer gets the item, make sure it's in good condition before they pay out the seller, so that way you know for sure that what you're getting is legit. Here we go. So Tau Empire. So I'm not going to read this whole piece, but essentially the way that they're changing our army rule, as you can see here, is instead of working in pairs, now what we can do is at the beginning of the shooting phase, we select targets, we select observers, and we select the target of being observed, and then our entire army gets the benefit. So one of the major things to note here, it is not what I assumed that it would look like, which is you can I assumed that we were going to have a change which would negate the split fire penalty, but this is better than that. This actually allows us to benefit when we split fire as well. So you could be, if two units are being guided, then you can then get the benefit when you're split firing into both, right? You can send a commander into one unit and get reroll ones to hit and wound, and you could send the crisis unit into another unit and get reroll ones to hit and wound. So very significant change there from a balance perspective, and when you kind of think about the permutations of that, the other units that I can unlock for the Tau Empire line, it is pretty significant. Um, and then
The one thing I
quickly,
do want to note for everybody there is that
yeah,
consider this now rather than you having two of your units pairing up, you are debuffing an enemy target. And no need for order of operations crap, no need for, oh, have I put enough guiders out? Have I whatever? Just start a shooting phase, pick them, and go. Now, I will say one thing that we will have to get used to. It means that killing stuff getting out of transports is significantly harder.
yep,
But I will absolutely take it because it doesn't specify that a unit can only be guided once. You just debuff a target, and as long as you're shooting a debuff target, you get the benefit. It is so good, John.
it literally just flipped our matchup into stat checks in a
Yes.
major way, in a very
Yes.
significant way, because before we had our three first activations were real ones hit and wound, and if you didn't kill the hard target by that third activation, then you just lose rerolls completely, and your efficiency drops off of a cliff. Now
Yep.
you have like Chaos Knights, for example. You have a really your chance of killing 3 War Dogs a turn is extremely high. Because you can point your whole army at those 3 War Dogs, and your efficiency goes up through the roof. So I'm really looking forward to that as a Tau player who's gotten used to just getting my ass kicked by stat checks.
Mm-hmm.
So very cool stuff. And so now moving on to the one where this is where Jay and I have a little bit of a disagreement. So I'm interested to hear Jay's thoughts. We didn't kind of go into it super deeply, but we're gonna get through. There's 2 more slight changes, and then we can kind of discuss this a little bit more at length. But it is the change to Kalyan. So how Kalyan changed is they changed the bonus for the detachment rule from sustained hits 2 turns 3, 4, and 5 to sustained hits 1 turns 3, 4, and 5. And if you are targeting a spotted unit, you get ignore ballistic skill and hit mods from turns 1 through 5. Now, when I first read that, I didn't think that was super impactful. We'll talk a little bit more about what that kind of means because I do think, to be fair, it is a pretty impactful buff. I personally was just hoping to see sustain hits 1 the whole game. That's kind of what I was hoping for. Um,
Mm.
Cool. Now, 2 enhancements that changed. Um, Now, one is it's the Kalyan and Monka damage buffs. So one is lethal hits
Yep.
against the spotted unit and sustained hits against the spotted unit. I think those are cool tech pieces to kind of mess around with. I'm not so sure how powerful they'll be given the points cost, which is at like 40 points right now for each of
40
them.
points for both of them.
Yeah,
Yep.
which is pretty significant. You're basically losing a unit to pick that up. And then
Yep.
lastly, a couple minor changes. One is the Firesight team now gets to reroll the hit roll against a spotted unit. I'm
Yep.
interested actually whether or not you could do that if that unit guides itself. It sounds like you can. You'll just be hitting on
No, only
4s.
Pathfinders can because if you guide, you get the observer tag.
I see.
Observers cannot gain the benefit of being a guided unit.
I see.
So
Okay.
the only people who can is the next line of text, the Pathfinders.
Yep.
Read that out for him, John.
Yep. Each time a model in this unit makes an attack that targets their spotted unit, improve the ballistic skill characteristic of that attack by 1 and attach the that attack has the ignores cover ability. Seems pretty good to me.
Yep, and I have some thoughts on Pathfinders as well. And then the most significant additive buff comes from the next unit, which I cannot believe the GW gave us this. Nobody can make a claim that GW hates Tau after this. Seriously.
Yeah, this is mini Oaths 3 times over.
Mm.
So stealth suits, forward observer's abilities change to each time this unit is an observer unit until the end of the phase. Each time a ranged attack is made by a model in a guided unit that targets their spotted unit, reroll a hit roll of 1 and reroll a wound roll of 1. That's pretty
Now
spicy
I've seen
meatball.
people trying to make an argument. Oh no, it's only for one unit. No, the wording is very very specific. Each time a unit targets this spotted unit, reroll blah blah blah. The wording on stuff like Imperial Knights, where it's reroll a hit roll or a wound roll, or if it's one unit, it is the next unit to target this, or one unit can reroll hit rolls and wound rolls of 1 or whatever. This is something I did not expect them to give us. I really thought they would do the first unit to target this spotted unit gets rerolls. This is, aside from making our army rules significantly more powerful and significantly more simplified, because in our last chat, John, we were talking about the fact that 5D chess is not a fun way to play 40k.
Mm-mm.
We are now just jamming checkers in our mouth and having fun at the table while drooling,
Mm-hmm.
while also having, as you very correctly put it, mini oaths. But even better than that, because if our stuff is hitting on 3s, we're re-rolling half the dice, so that's a mini oath part. And then we're also mini oathing the wound roll as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, all right. So I have some thoughts on all of this, but I, would like you to go first so you can sort of like vent out some of your thoughts and,
Yeah.
you know, we can bounce off that.
Yeah, so I would say I went through like a bit of a roller coaster today. I think when I opened, and I'll tell you why, because you and I have been discussing like potential changes. I've made a couple of videos about changes to data sheets. So I personally was disappointed when I saw the banner on GW's website that was like Tau is receiving the most significant changes of any faction, and then I go to the text and I see like 5 little paragraphs. One of them kind of feels like a nerf to me, and it's kind of hard to read in between the lines like how impactful this stuff is really going to be when I look at this. I look at some of the data sheets and I see some of the newer codices out there, and it's hard not to compare and contrast the two. But after thinking a little bit further about the changes and the permutations of them, like what they are actually going to mean on the tabletop, it is really significant. Um, the like we kind of already mentioned, the change from being able to split fire, they essentially just unlock split firing for our entire army, and they basically made us a ballistic skill 3 army. Now, I would say we were like a ballistic skill 3.4, like 3.3, like most of the units that we wanted to have buffs on it would. But like for example, like the ghost skill. Typically when I was running like a Monka list, I would have like a ghost skill, two hammerheads, and three riptides, right? So usually I would have like four-ish marker-like guides, and those would go to the first four damage dealers, right? And so the fifth riptide and the ghost keel would usually either get like guided by a devilfish, so not getting any real benefits other than the +1 ballistic skill, or just be going and guiding, like the ghost keel itself would be guiding. Now all six of those units, as long as you have like three guides, it's probably all it's going to take to kill what's in front of you, maybe four.
Mhm.
um, you get efficiency, you get maximum efficiency from all of those, which is like a pretty decent damage buff. Like at least like I mean it's probably around 10% I would say to be getting reroll once hit and wound on those two units when you otherwise wouldn't. So I do think it is relevant. Now I am still not super stoked about the Kalyan thing, just because I get that Kalyan Sustain 2 was really strong. I get that the data said a couple weeks ago that it had a 55% win rate, but it had a 50% win rate on open boards. It did not have a 55% win rate on WTC. It did not have a 55% win rate on GW Train.
Mm.
As open as GW Train is, there's still really good staging there. I think it had a 55% win rate on UKTC Train. And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
when I'm reading into that, maybe I'm reading into it too much, but to me, it felt like a terrain specific nerf that we, like, myself and you were kind of caught in the crossfire. And I would have been really happy to just see the turn restrictions and the stratagem restriction turns, the turn restrictions on stratagems as well. That was really what I was looking for. Is like, why can't we play the game like everyone else, where everyone else has like a press a button, get lance, press a button, get sustained hits, press a button, get lethal hits, right?
Mm.
Press a button, extra AP. And so that's kind of what I was hoping for, is like just to level the playing field with other armies. So that's kind of where the
Mm.
disappointment for me comes out, is the comparison is the thief of joy kind of situation. So
Right. So I had the complete opposite reaction, and this is something I'm actually very proud of. That as a player, as a coach, as a content creator, I have been able to kind of have my finger on the pulse of what's good and what's not almost immediately when looking at it. Like I was one of the few people that was like absolutely glazing Oxcad when it came out. And even where like you had someone like Grundy, for example, had a really negative reaction to it and then had to put a video out later, being like, hey, I think I got this wrong and I think, this has got whatever, whatever. I have had a similar reaction to this where I genuinely believe that this is one of the most fundamental rule shakeups that we could have gotten. And the flow on effects from this are going to be so far reaching that Tau might actually start to define the meta in what can come out. Now, inarguably, Kalyon did cop a little bit of a damage nerf. 100% cannot argue that point. Like sustained hits 2 is really good, but I would also argue nobody should be surprised that sustained hits 2 is gone. We
yep.
saw with Daka, and especially in a post Daka world, sustained hits 2 army wide is too much. It's way too much. It does too much damage. And it's like Tau has excellent high quality shooting, as you correctly pointed out. Now all of it is going to be on threes all the time.
Mhm.
And we have ignore cover, which a lot of other armies don't get like broad access to. And I would like to say, like, it's easy when we look at things in a vacuum to say, oh, we'll ignore modifiers, whatever, I don't care about that. People don't care about ignore modifiers until they absolutely need to be ignoring modifiers, and then it fucking sucks
Mm-hmm.
when you can't do it.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of armies in the meta at the moment, especially the big elephant in the room is Death Guard,
Mm-hmm.
that big, stinky, undead elephant.
Mm-hmm.
They have a bunch of hit modifiers.
Yep.
There are a bunch of ballistic skill modifiers in the game.
Sure.
If you can ignore that, especially with the mission pack not really changing that we are favoring the end of the game, and that early on you're going to be doing like light trading patterns, staging, doing all your stuff, and then if you can come out swinging with sustained hits on everything, because everything is getting guided now, and you've got ignore, hit, and ballistic skill modifiers, that is something where your opponent, there are entire lists that are built around mechanics like hit and ballistic skill modifiers. And if that goes away, then that army doesn't have a single leg to stand on. Now, again, it's not as good as sustained hits too, but I actually think, and I was saying this a little bit before we hit the record button, I don't think GW would have been able to implement more change, and I'm glad that they didn't.
Yeah. Why is
Because
that?
with such a fundamental rule shakeup, with a buff this size, and it is significant for anybody watching this who had a similar sort of reaction that John had this morning, but hasn't gone through the process of thinking about it and whatever. I can tell you right now, this is one of the most significant buffs that Tau has gotten across the entire landscape of 10th, and is fucking incredible. It is incredible, and you won't realize that until you get games in on it. When we're looking at this, if they had have gone further and changed more stuff, they could have overshot us to the point where we would have to get nerfed like Sisters did. Sisters is still suffering from a very well written codex and a very, very strong initial out the gate showing. If we got the same thing, especially because GW has shown that they want to be hesitant with Tower. They want to be a little bit harder on them because there is a lot of community sentiment. There's a lot of PTSD flying around from Ninth and whatever else.
Mm-hmm.
I think we would have been in a worse position if they changed too much and we came out and we did it. Now, I can understand people being a little bit disappointed with that, but I would just like to say to everybody out there that's having that reaction, give it a chance and have a look at this with unbiased eyes, and you
Mm-hmm.
will see what I'm seeing. It,
Have you gotten a game
yeah.
in yet?
Haven't had a chance to get a game in. I literally was last night because it came out at like 8 o'clock Australian time. Normally, I was expecting it tonight, and normally they release their updates at like 10 o'clock Aussie. I'm in like the middle of a strike in Destiny 2 with my mate who I normally stream with and stuff. And I'm like, oh shit, Charles, rules came out. I'm sorry, bud, you're on your own. Catch you later. Bye. And they're just like chucked on my stream and everything. And then as soon as I jumped off stream, I had to go to bed and look after Mally. And we had a rough night. So if ever I misspeak during this entire interview, please forgive me. I've not had a lot of sleep.
Oh, you're okay.
But yeah, haven't had a chance to get a game in yet. But I am near to certain that the way that I'm feeling right now will translate into performance on the tabletop.
Mm-hmm.
And like, yeah. On the topic of the enhancements that you were looking at before through Unity Devastation and Coordinated Exploitation, it's my belief that they're dead on arrival until the meta shifts back to something like big centerpiece models.
Mm-hmm.
Because for 40 points, with a line of text, and I was saying this in the stream, while the bearer is leading a unit, kills this enhancement.
Oh, it's
because
while the
Tau
bearer-
does not have good standalone characters that can utilize this
Yep.
without giving up a breacher squad or taking an ethereal and a strike squad, which is just
Yeah, that
points that
package
could
is
go into
165.
something else.
It's 165 for that package. That is hefty. That is hefty.
What? That is a full ghost kill.
Yeah.
You are giving up a ghost kill and everything that it brings in order to get that for a one and done.
Yeah.
For a unit that really can't go and expose itself. So you like, if you're playing on an open table where there's no terrain, sure, you'll get benefit out of it. If you're playing on any sort of decent table, you will need to maneuver this unit to get access to a high quality unit where you can utilize this. And yes, it's priced around the fact that every unit that targets that spotted unit gets that lethal hits or sustained hits.
Mhm.
But I just don't see the point of it when in Montcar, like the sustained hits is interesting because then you've also got lethal hits because of the army rule.
Mhm.
But when Strike Swiftly exists, when Strategic Conquer exists, why am I spending valuable points to pick up something that is so hard to use? And like, I don't want to chuck it on a breacher package.
Mhm.
I want my breacher package to get the benefit of this because they're a unit that translates buffs directly into high volume of damage.
Mhm.
And it just like I look at this and I get what GW is going for, but this is a change and a point structure which is designed for casual play. I
Mhm.
don't think this has competitive in mind, and that's fine. Like the detachments have excellent enhancements outside of this, so I don't think it's too much of a loss. We weren't really take it before, so like, who cares? But we suffer from a leader problem with this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I forget who I was listening to. I think Six Plus Plus Gaming. They made a really great video talking Tau changes, and this was one of the detachments or the enhancements that they were speaking about. Was it was just and that's kind of it was just at odds with what you want to get out of it. Is you don't want to put it on a damage dealer, right? Because
Yep,
that's basically what's being asked here. It's either you're putting it on a 125 point backline holding unit that gets a CP on a 4 up every once in a while,
yep,
which is a hard pill to swallow because you
yep.
have to expose then your backfield objective holder, and if your opponent has the tools to deal with that, they will go for it immediately. You know, and
Mhm.
like sometimes they won't, but to your point, maneuvering this unit to get down multiple firing angles, like usually it'll be sitting down one firing angle, like it's not going to end up being super impactful. So hopefully,
And if we look at extrapolating this even further, if we put it on a commander, we put it onto say like a Star Scythe with Flamer unit, where they don't need guiding themselves, they can guide. They've got a marker drone, so they've got marker light, all that good stuff. And we're not utilizing stealth suits to guide for our entire army.
mm,
We jump through all those hoops. Then in the clapback, the crisis unit dies because Star Sides don't have an invuln save. The commander limps on because we took shield drones on him and he lives on like 2 wounds or whatever. That 40-point enhancement he can no longer use because he's not leading a unit. Why? If I'm paying 40 points for a goddamn enhancement, it should work for the entire time that that character is alive.
mm.
So, GW, if you're listening to this, remove that line and the price tag is worth it.
Yep.
You could put this down to 25 points and I still wouldn't take it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Because of the implications of you needing to take
Of leading a
125
unit.
points of dead,
Yep.
dead stuff. We need every point we can get, every pip of damage we can get.
If we were like Space Marines or something, they got so many characters that can take this that like and the characters you would want to take this on is someone like Darkstrider.
Mm-hmm.
If we had a stealth suit commander where you could do that, get your benefits, have layering buffs, whatever else, that's worth 40 points. But at the moment, it's just not. So, in my opinion, these two are dead on arrival.
Mm-hmm.
And if somebody shows me data that proves that I'm wrong, I will happily eat my words and swallow it. But at the moment, I just don't think it's it.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, I would tend to agree. Well, would love
mhm.
to shift the discussion a little bit. We kind of talked
Yeah,
a little bit about how this is going to be super impactful for a few different units in the Tau army. So I'm
yep.
curious, like what are some of the units that first come to mind that you want to kind of toy around with and mess around with in Tau?
Honestly, I want to look at Alpha Strike Pathfinders. First thing that
Mm,
jumped out at me. There's a lot of people being like, "Oh, they can't double guide. This unit sucks now. Whatever." No, if I win the infiltrate game, I scout them 7 inches forward, stand still in my movement phase. I've got ion rifles hitting on threes, fully guided. Don't need any other units. Don't need to pair up. Don't need anything else. And they can throw grenades, do mortal wounds, then they can eye on you, then they can grenade launch you, then they can do whatever. And if I do all of that in Oxcad, one little piddly unit of Crete Hounds that sprinted up the board is giving all of their weapons a minimum of AP1 with ignores cover.
mm-hmm.
We have not had a self-sufficient missile like that, I think, throughout the entirety of 10th.
Mm-hmm.
Even the big crisis brick, yes, you could kill a lot with just volume of fire, but they still loved Tetras.
Mm-hmm.
Loved Tetras.
You know what else I'm thinking about with that Alpha
Mm,
Strike? something I
Mm.
think is actually I haven't heard anybody talk about. I think is gonna come back is SMS. Because
We were
now,
talking about that on stream,
oh, you
actually.
were
Yeah.
okay. I didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to watch your stream, but you could split fire SMS wherever the hell you want to. If you do that alpha strike like you're talking about, you get the ignores cover on it. Then you're dumping SMS on top of shooting with pathfinders. Then you're like definitely killing a 5-man marine unit. And a lot of times, I mean, I'm not sure what your experience has been like, but I experience like when I go first and I try to alpha strike, like I see some JPI staged to attack my natural expansion. I
Mm.
shoot pathfinders, they make a save or two. I only get like 2 through with the big shots, and I kill 1.5 or 2. Right
Yep.
now, like you're getting extra AP. You're getting AP from the Crude Hounds on the SMS that's also getting ignores cover, and you're like, wait a second, this is like I'm definitely killing the 5-man unit. I'm used to people being like, okay, I infiltrate and scout my pathfinders back behind my ruin and just get clapped by a unit of reavers or a unit of
Yeah.
commandos, and I never really have the opposite experience where I'm going out and digging someone out when I take advantage when I go first. But
Mm.
comboing the Pathfinders with SMS is like you're guaranteed. Like you are borderline guaranteed to put like 10 saves on your opponent plus
Yep.
Pathfinders.
Yep. And like it's very important within the army rule that like we're still going to be hitting on fours. No two ways about that. Sorry if you can hear Mushu in the background. He's teeing off at somebody at the front door. Little idiot. Um, so you're still hitting on fours because the nerf to indirect that everybody has to suffer from. That's fine. But the rule doesn't state anymore that both targets need to have line of sight to the
Mhm.
target that you're shooting at, which is the big thing, which is where you're able to get that ignores cover from anywhere on the board, which was a big thing holding our indirect back. Now, I don't think indirect's going to take over the game, especially because in the meta at the moment, we've got a lot of very, very tough things that do not care about SMS whatsoever. But, you go to a tournament, you're still going to run into Eldari, you're still going to run into Sisters, Astra Militarum, GSC, even just like little units from like Tyranids and stuff, they're little scoring units that they want to use and that they do not want to lose. You know, World Eaters, if they want to leave a unit of Jackals on the backfield, okay, cool. I'm going to pepper the crap out of it. And maybe by like turn 2 or 3, you don't have a backfield objective holder.
Well, even
Let's see Angron go back and hold your points because you need those points.
well, even a lot of the SMS platforms they're twin linked, right? So like
Yeah.
they don't really care that much. Like even I'll give you an example of like a unit of Exalted Eightbound, right? They're kind of at this point where they like maybe kill a transport. That's like 50-50 they kill a transport. If one of them's gone, they aren't killing a transport. They are not,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's what they're built for. They're a one send missile. They kill the thing that they're looking at, and so even like T5, T4 stuff, I don't care.
Mm.
I'm getting tired of people infiltrating 20 poxwalkers against me. Cool.
Yep.
See you
Yep.
later. You want to measure 30 inches from my deployment zone. Guess what? That you're in your own deployment zone now. So
Yeah.
it
And if you need to, you put him in Borkan, give him sustained lethal hits, give him +1 strength and -1 AP.
oh
You
yeah.
like you have stratagem support as well. And this is where I'm looking at very intently the SMS spam with a supernova commander
Mm.
in Borkan so that I've got so much of this. And even when I need to do direct shooting, that's still fantastic.
Mhm.
So I definitely think that like you've touched on something that a lot of people need to have their eye on to see if it comes out swinging the way that like we think that it might. Obviously, it's meta dependent,
Mhm.
but yeah, I think that SMS is now not a meme of a weapon platform. Um, one other
Especially
thing that I think. Oh, sorry, go.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say, especially in like I feel like at least in the U.S. it's like very much an MSU meta. And I think that is a weakness for Tau right now, because of like our strength will be more towards the skews of the world, and playing against armies that have like 12, 13, 14 units as opposed to like 16 to 18, and so
Mm,
um, I think that SMS will help with eliminating some units that some very efficient trading pieces for our opponents, and
yeah, I would
force
agree.
them to walk
Yeah.
into a bad situation which is we put a cheap unit on an objective, they have to step out an expensive unit, and then we're trading up really quickly, and so
Mm.
the SMS just kind of accelerates that.
And I actually think that this army change really helps us deal with MSU. I
Mm,
actually don't think that MSU is strong against us anymore because like our trading patterns have fundamentally changed.
mm,
You and I were talking in the last video that we did about we have to expose 2 units for every one of our opponent. Well, now we expose one guider and then as many shooting units as we want.
Mhm.
And if, as you correctly pointed out before, if that shooting flops on the first activation, we're no longer just screwed because we lost ignores cover, we lost every roll, we lost whatever. That MSU unit is almost guaranteed to die,
Mhm.
which means as long as we can set up good trading patterns, and that will be a little bit of skill expression for Tau players to lean into, as long as you're trading correctly, I actually think we are posed to be a natural predator for a lot of the stuff that's really good right now. Like, nobody has better tools of dealing with Death Guard than we do. Because high toughness, we don't give a shit. We got rail guns, we've got ions that can have their strength buffed, we've got ghost kills with like strength 12 fusions, we've got so many different options that we can use to deal with stuff that I honestly think that most of the meta has to be scared of us now.
I have not taken Skyrays in a while.
Mm,
I really like the idea of 3 Skyrays next to Shadow Sun and 1 Skyray
mm.
guides for the other two.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
that's just a better Lancer.
yep.
I was just
And you
thinking
might
about
not
it. I
even
was
need
like,
to.
someone was I think it was I was listening to Art of War and Harpster was talking about
Mm.
putting the rapid fire enhancement on a Lancer and it's like if it gets within 36 it gets a third shot. And I'm like, wait a second.
Oh, the Iron Priest for wolves.
Yeah, yeah, and I was like, wait a
Yeah, isn't
second.
that an interesting thing? Space wolves are now the best shooting army.
Yeah, and I was like, wait a second, but Skyrays just get twin linked
Yep,
and they get to reroll a hit roll. And then if
yep,
we have Shadow Sun nearby, they're rerolling ones to hit. So if I roll a 1 and a 2,
yep.
then I'm just rerolling. I'm like,
And then if they fly, you get full rerolls to hit.
yeah, and I'm like, all those bloat drones, all those mephitic blight haulers, those all fly.
And a really big thing to point out with that if your AP3, even with cover, AP2 takes them to an invuln anyway,
Sure.
Shadow Sun just guides. Who
Yeah,
cares? Don't
exactly.
even need the
Yeah,
thing.
exactly.
Like,
Yeah, it's so true.
I I think it is a very very good little package, and this is exactly what I was so hopeful for in the stream last night, and we're starting to do it now. The more you talk about the stuff that you can use with this buff, everything just unlocks, and you're like, holy shit, I can use this, I can use this, I can use this. One thing I will say, a unit that I think is going to become a staple again is piranhas.
Mm,
Now, the reason I say that is that our guiding does not deal with transports well. Nothing deals with transports in an early alpha strike better than piranhas.
mm,
Take away their transports before they can move up the board. The piranha dies. Cool. That's like 65, 70 points or whatever the nerf brought them to.
mm-hmm.
But that is then that transport gone with a melter and 2 seeker missiles. You run up 2 of them, and you can still just have one guide for the other. If you get a Pathfinder or a stealth suit, just able to see down a tiny line, both of those piranhas. Now get it. Our Alpha Strike is significantly better because one of the, like you pointed out with the Pathfinders, that you might kill a JPI, you might not. And the big problem there was that nothing could stage with them in a way where everything got guiding. And it was a similar problem with Piranhas
Mm-hmm.
because no guiding, you couldn't get 2 guiding units to go up with 2 Piranhas because the clapback on it would have you lose like a quarter of your army.
Mm-hmm.
And some things just aren't fast enough to be able to do that or get the angle that you need to get.
Yep.
Now, 2 Piranhas can be a self-sufficient package for each other. One is shooting very, very well. The other one is just back to base fours, and that's fine. That's what we were doing before anyway.
Mm-hmm.
You have one Pathfinder unit that's sitting on an objective, and you pop one dude over a wall so he can see their targets. Bang, you have unlocked everything for all of them.
Yep.
It is I think Piranhas are going to be an answer to the only problem that our army rule now presents us, which is dealing with transports.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. That is the biggest problem for us. Like I played against CSM the other day. What a nightmare. I played.
Oh my god, yeah.
I don't know if you've ever gone into Veterans of the Long War.
Yes.
They have
Yes.
oaths and
Yep.
reactive moves into transports. I'm like, what do I do here?
Yep.
I
Yep.
feel like you're just dictating the battle here. So yeah, I think having something like piranhas and being able to take opportunistic shots at transports
Yeah.
early, because
Yep.
they're usually when someone's running 2 or 3 transports, there's usually one that you can get a couple piranhas into and a Pathfinder guide. So being able to
Yep.
take advantage of that could be really big.
As a small side note, because I got a decent amount of experience into that, what breaches go up in value massively
Yeah.
because
Oh yeah.
disembarking from a transport doesn't trigger reactive moves. So
Mm.
you put the devilfish at 9.1, dump the breaches out onto the objective or whatever it might be. They don't get to reactive move. You just blow up everything.
Mhm.
It's that's for anybody watching. That's the way you defeat reactive moves.
And I think that breachers stocks, I think they're way up
Oh
for
yeah.
one other
Oh
reason.
yeah.
So you'll notice that the within the changes to the secondary missions, there's a very subtle change, but I think it's very important. They changed two of them to being one is attempting target and the other one is display of might. So what is that getting us to do more of as players within 40k? Play more the midboard. Play the objectives. What plays objectives the best in our
Yeah.
army? What scores attempting target every single time?
Yep.
A unit of breachers with a cadre fireblade just
The most fuckable unit in the data sheet. I've
it's
said it
true, man.
before, I'll say it again. It is the battle line your girl tells you not to worry about.
And no containment, right? They are pointing us towards the midboards, and you know, breachers are our best answer to staging units. They just are,
Yeah.
and units that are hiding behind objectives, staging in ruins. So having, I really think having at least two. I'm looking at three in Monka. I'm looking
Mm,
at two
yeah.
breacher, two fish, 20, 30 breachers, one cadre fireblade, one that sits and waits is reactive, and the other one that's proactive and shoots breachers at your opponent's natural. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
and I think that
One
it's
thing I did want to bring up actually during our chat
yeah.
was that our Razor Shark lists just went up in stonks massively.
Mm, tell me
You
more.
are able
I
to
didn't. I
have
haven't thought
those
about it.
Razor Sharks,
Oh my
like
gosh. Oh yeah.
you walk in one stealth suit unit with them,
Oh yeah.
and you are now attacking a staging area with
Ooh.
both planes.
Ugh.
Getting ignores cover and +1 ballistic skill, rerolls to
Yeah.
hit and wound.
It's
There is
gross.
nothing that lives through that unless they spike their saves. There is
So true.
like it's a
That's
good day to be a Tau player, John. It
that's
is. It
very
is.
true.
It is such a good day to be a Tau
I'm
player.
gonna freaking put those things back on the table, man. Yeah, you make a really good point. You make a really
Yep.
good
And
point.
in my opinion, our two S tier detachments at the moment are Oxcad and KHP.
Mm,
Your interview with Drew and the list that he had, that one went up in value massively because guiding became easier for the high quality shooting.
yeah.
Don't have to jump through as many hoops. You can spend your time just moving your rampages and your Crutox riders and whatever else. And Oxcad, you've taken out the complexity of the army rule, which means all you need to focus on is, do I have Crute within 9 of an enemy?
Mhm.
And I've said it before that it solves two of Tau's biggest problems. One, getting people to step out, and two, lower AP on a number of our guns. Pair that with ignores cover, and you just kill everything in the game.
Mhm.
You can attack staging points with razor sharks, with breaches, with whatever you need to. You can bomb the crap out of people and then shoot them with sun sharks. Like we are about to have a very very good time. And John,
Mm. Oh ho ho ho.
I just want to seat this here because somebody got a massive indirect buff from all of this.
Well, well, well. If it isn't Reptar himself.
I actually think that Reptar and Mrs. Reptar could be coming down as a two Storm Surge list because they are difficult enough to remove, and now you can have all of their guns split firing into whatever targets they need to. The main pain point for a Storm Surge was that you couldn't split fire its guns into the stuff you wanted to go into.
Mhm.
Now, I'm not saying that Storm Surges are going to like take over the meta and they're the best way to play Tau,
Sure.
but you're also not trolling by leaning into the stat check and the 2 up, 4 up armor. You take like broadsides in conjunction with them, ghost kills for the 2 up armor. Like, yeah, if hell, if Riptides even, like, you can have a list composition which is incredibly tanky, supported by incredibly cheap units, and your guiding isn't a problem anymore. You can have your guns going into whatever you need to. You
Mhm.
put them in, I don't know, like a detachment that isn't actively against the fact that I can't take Storm Surges in Oxcad really hurts me. It really, really hurts me. I want GW to fix that as the next point of order. But like, for Khan, I can give him sustained lethal on everything. I
That
can
is
give
pretty
him strength
insane.
and AP. Like, there is so much that I can do with it. just yeah. Thoughts, bud?
Yeah, no, I think it's interesting. I haven't like I did look at the data sheet. I did take a look at it. I I think that it has play, and I'm curious about it in experimental prototype and Monka because of
Mm,
the lethals just built in. Also, minus
yep.
1 damage on that thing makes it
And
an
then having a scout move enhancement to have
exactly,
two storm surges scout move.
exactly, and just be in the midboard. That's real. That's a real
It is.
like threatening
It is.
unit,
Yep.
and it can do some real work. Now, I will say
Yeah.
I'm not super impressed by the guns. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not super
Oh,
impressed. But
100%, 100%. The Storm Surge to be really competitive needs to get the Tiger Shark treatment, where
mm,
everything's got AP1 on it.
yep,
I genuinely believe AP1 fixes all of its problems.
yeah, 100%. Because yeah, with
Yeah.
the 46 blast, it's just like, eh, you know, not
Yeah.
super impressed by it. But
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I am curious, kind of, if you're gonna go play a game like tonight or today. I mean, maybe you are. Like, what would you be playing, and why?
Right now, it'd be my brain first. I'm
Like,
a
what do you
little
want to
bit
test
torn.
out? Yeah, what do you want to test out?
So I want to test out prototype Carter SMS spam with a supernova, fusion blades, and thermoneutronic projector. A little bit of crisis spam, a little bit of like stuff behind it, breaches wrapped into the package, that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I also, and of course, piranhas for Alpha Striker transports. But then I actually think if I were to be walking into a tournament, it'd be Oxcad, 12 rampages, and then a bunch of like supporting units, breaches, that sort of stuff around it.
Mm-hmm.
I really do think that Oxcad is our most powerful way to play at the moment. And so if I'm looking at winning a GT, I want to wrap in all of this quality of life change, the buff that we've got, with like little Pathfinder missiles, with stealth suits supporting in the backfield, and then just a bunch of Kroot winning the game for me. And having a six-man rampager brick that can advance and charge and then reroll wounds into somebody is like that is like Space Wolves melee, unironically.
That unit can confirm that unit fucks.
That unit fucks super hard.
It,
Like it fucks your wife and then you thank them. Like
I had it.
and yeah, so that's what I'm looking at the moment. But I honestly think that like Montcar got a massive tick up in this. The only one that I'm not like I'm abstaining from making a judgment on is Retaliation Carter.
Mm-hmm.
Out of all of our detachments, I probably have the least experience on Retaliation Carter.
Mm-hmm.
I think that good players are going to get a lot of benefit out of this. And for a hyper elite set of lists, it takes a massive pain point out and allows those units to be a little bit more self-sufficient. But again, if I don't feel like I have a solid opinion or enough evidence or whatever to make an opinion, I just don't form one. So I'll wait to see how that pans out.
Sure. Now, I will say that is surprisingly enough the detachment that I want to check out right now.
Yeah, right. Okay. So what about Retcad's calling to you?
So I think that having so I'll just tell a story, which is one of my buddies, Tucker, really good player. He just got his golden ticket actually last week.
Nice.
Yeah, playing on a team tournament with some buddies. He ran this list, this retaliation cadre list, which was, and he doesn't play Tau. This was the only time I ever saw him play Tau. It was right after the Codex came out. He's normally a GSC player, and he had two Skyrays, two Hammerheads, and five Crisis units. And so
Okay.
I thought that was really peculiar. I was like, "What are you doing? This makes no sense to me." And he's like, "Well, the Skyrays step out early game. They force your opponent to come out. Then you drop the crisis suits and the hammerheads kill whatever shot the skyrays." And I'm like, oh, that sounds like a really simple game plan, but it didn't really work for me when I was playing it out. But when you put in, for example, 3 units of star scythes, so like 10 d6 flamers, now that you're getting the benefit at 9 inches, that is significant. Because now you're rapid ingressing and easily getting into the extra AP range, like trivially, and you really have this like opportunity to, sounds a little crazy, not run any stealth suits and just run damage. because you're running three
Okay.
Starsight units and three Skyrays, you have Ignores cover all over the place. You drop Shadow Sun in there, and now you're kind of in this interesting space where, sure, you're losing some efficiency by not spending 160 points on stealth suits, but you gain
Mhm.
that efficiency back by getting 160 points in damage instead. And so
Yeah, yeah,
that just you're losing those rerolls, but I think that I think it's really powerful to have a unit that drops in fire and fades directly in front of your opponent and says, "Here's 10d6 flamers at 521. What are you going to do about it?"
mm,
And so it has the ability to manipulate primary in a way that um, in a way that breachers do, to be fair, at a similar price point. So I I think I think crisis suits just got a lot better. Like I'm thinking about putting the lethal and
yeah,
sustained enhancement on a commander, split firing the unit off at strength 10, AP 5, outside of 9. That extra 3 inches really does matter because now you're fired and fading 12 inches back. You're 21 inches away from your opponent. Now you might not be actually just losing that unit for free. So
yeah.
I I haven't played Redcat in a long time. I haven't even played it since they made the change to 9 inch. But for whatever reason, I'm just having these intrusive thoughts that are like, I want to I want to do a drop turn on somebody.
It, yeah, it seems like a solid game plan, and like I actually mentioned this when I was sort of getting my thoughts together on stream before I decided to abstain from actually making a judgment on Redcad. That you've got so many stratagem tools, like you mentioned, the fire and fade, the 6 inch deep strike, and then also just for anybody that interacts with the hit roll, you've got sustained hits on, like, we're seeing like big units of like plague marines, that sort of stuff. Even just as soon as somebody gets to 6 models or more, and there are a lot of units that have that because of leaders and all that sort of stuff. um Having sustained hits on demand on shooting, which is +1 strength, -1 AP, and then any data sheet buffs that they've got, that is a significant amount of extra damage. And I kind of love that we've come full circle. In our first chat, you were talking about trying to make a list that didn't include any stealth suits. And then here you are.
I just want to, I want to try something completely different because the more I think about it, the more I'm like, okay, the stealth suit buff, it applies to, the 5 crises that I'm taking. And the star scythes, so 3 nets of star scythes, one fire knife, and one sunforge. The stealth suit
Yep.
buff only applies to one half of each of those activations,
Mhm.
right? Because fire knives, it only applies to the wound roll.
Yep.
Sunforge, it only applies to the hit roll. Star scythes, it only applies to the wound roll, right? So like when you include in that list three sky rays, they're going to be all rerolling once to hit and twin linked on the back end. You really aren't losing much efficiency at all by just taking the third Skyray as opposed to
No, the logic is
stealth
sound.
suits.
Yeah.
So
100%.
we'll see. I wanna try something different. I don't I was making a Monka list and my Monka list just like looks super similar to my old Monka list and I just want to do
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah.
want to have some fun. I want to like try something else, that's completely different from what I've played recently, and
Yep.
see if we can't find something here.
Yeah, I think that that's something that is really important to point out to everybody, that like Tau list building isn't going to radically change to the point where you don't recognize everything. But you will have these very, very unique lists that, even though they might rely on like similar backbones of stuff, every army has that problem. Like every army has a similar backbone that they have to rely on because they are a staple. And then the choices that you're making around it are your supporting units, your damage units, your detachments, all that sort of stuff. You will very rarely have such a shift like when you see a crude hunting pack list, which is whoops all gorillas. Like that happens, once or twice in an edition. But a lot of the other stuff, like they're staples because they work, and a lot of the things that were really good before are now significantly better with the new army rule. It's just also lifted up our worst units up out of like unplayable territory because of the guiding mechanic keeping them there, and now being like, even if it's not like the top 1% hyper competitive units that we've got in the book, they are still good units and they can work.
Mm-hmm.
But like nobody should be like, oh well, GW didn't do enough. Our lists still look pretty similar. Well, I mean, yeah, like the tournament staples are tournament staples for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I genuinely think that across the next few weeks, few months, we are going to see a shift in Tau that is honestly really exciting for Tau players. I can understand people having a negative reaction because they get expectations in their head. I saw people talking about like, oh, we didn't get toughness changes, we didn't get this, we didn't get that. And it's interesting that the only like the only reason people are thinking about that is because content creators spoke about that's what I want. Because I saw
Mm-hmm.
that 6 plus video as well, where he was talking about that's what he wants. And when I was looking at it, I thought it was a little bit unrealistic. I didn't think GW would go down that sort of a route.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we saw the same thing with Oxcad where everybody got in their head big suits. Somebody said it online and everybody took it and rolled with it, and then people have a negative reaction to something great because it doesn't meet the expectations that they wanted. And I think that there are people doing the same with this, where they had a bunch of like these sweeping changes that they wanted. But really, we got handed a fantastic change that didn't look like how people might have wanted it to look.
Mm-hmm.
And that can cause a dissonance. So if anybody's having that reaction, genuinely try and take bias out of it. Have a look at this, build a list, get a game in with your friends, and just see what I'm talking about. John, it is a great time to be a fucking Tau player.
Jay, I think that is a great note to end it on. Um,
Sounds good.
Thanks everybody for joining us today. Really appreciate you making it to the end of the video. Hope you enjoyed this discussion. I think I really enjoy talking with Jay because we have healthy disagreements about how we perceive things, and so it's really interesting to get your perspective as always, Jay. And yeah, that's gonna do it for today's video, everybody. Catch you guys in the next one. Peace.
See you, everybody.